Hi everyone, I'm Liam, and in this video we're going to take a look at how to read the Lightroom histogram. A better understanding of the histogram can help you capture higher quality raw files and get more from your edits. So the histogram is located in the top right of the develop module and is in the form of a graph. For a color image, this graph actually displays 4 separate sets of data overlaid on top of each other. So we have luminance, which is shown in grey. We have red, green and blue histograms, which correspond to those particular color channels. For a black and white image, the histogram will only display luminance data. The histogram is split into 5 zones horizontally, which correspond to the sliders in the basic panel. So these are exposure in the center, this covers midtones, we have shadows, and then blacks to the left, and highlights and whites to the right. You can actually adjust these sliders right here in the histogram by hovering your mouse over a zone and then clicking and dragging to increase or decrease the slider. So this is really useful if you want to see how the adjustment is affecting the tonality of your image as you're making the change. So since the histogram is a graph, we can actually use the shape of that graph to tell us about how the light was captured in the photo. So there are 5 distinct histogram shapes that you can look out for that will tell you how the light was captured. First up, we have neutral exposure. Data stretches across the width of the histogram, with most of the data being captured in midtones and no loss of data in the blacks or whites. This will give the most flexibility when editing. Exposed to the left, or ETTL. So this creates a darker image, but it can actually be useful in trickier lighting situations because most modern digital cameras deal better with shadow recovery than highlight recovery. So by exposing to the left, you can retain highlight detail and recover the shadow detail in the edit, but you will find that some additional noise will be introduced in the shadows when recovering. Underexposed. In this case, the blacks are clipped, which means there's no data in the darkest areas of the image. So while you can recover some of this, it will be tricky, you won't be able to get all of the data back, and it will almost always result in a noisier image with less clarity in more detailed areas. Exposed to the right, or ETTR. So generally this gives less noise than underexposing, but it can become tricky not to accidentally overexpose your image, which should be avoided at all costs when we talk about digital cameras. Overexposed. In this example, the whites are clipped and data is lost in the brightest parts of the image, and this is something you really want to avoid with digital cameras, as generally they can't handle overexposure and you will often be left with an image that cannot be recovered. So based on that, we generally want to aim for a neutral exposure. This will give us the most latitude when editing photos. So with that in mind, you can actually use the histogram in your camera to check this while shooting, allowing you to make adjustments in the moment that will aid with the post-processing workflow. One other type of histogram shape that you might come across is something like this, where all the data is bunched up in the middle. This indicates that most of the data is captured in the midtones, meaning that the photo is lacking in contrast. So this can be corrected by increasing the contrast or adjusting the white and black points to add more contrast back into your image. Again, this could be corrected when shooting by adjusting yours or your subject's positioning to the light, or by adjusting your camera settings during capture. So as mentioned, you generally want to avoid clipping the highlights or shadows of your image because that can lead to data loss. So there's another great tool in the histogram that can help you to identify that, and that's the clipping tool. So this can be activated by pressing the J key on the keyboard or by clicking on the small triangles in the top left and right of the histogram to activate the shadow and highlight clipping independently. When activated, areas of shadow clipping are shown in blue and areas of highlight clipping are shown in red. Make sure to check out my clipping tool quick tip video to learn more about this feature. So there you have it, an overview of how to read the histogram and make adjustments both when shooting and in post-processing to help achieve the best quality images. With that being said, there is no correct or incorrect histogram, it's simply a dataset that we can interpret to understand how light is captured in the raw file. I hope you found this video useful. I'm Liam, and I'll see you in the next one.